I'm sure by now that you've heard the news, whether you saw my last video on this subject or you've seen all the information going around Twitter, especially as it relates to Phil Spencer's tweet telling us all to wait until next week. And one of the things, or one of the goals of this video is to really kind of break down what I see happening next. And you might wonder, Brian, what makes you qualified to talk about these things? Well, just a couple of things. I'm a software developer. I'm a game developer. I've been working in studying and overanalyzing this industry since the Super Nintendo days. I'm an avid gamer, and outside of my family, outside of my kids and my wife, gaming is my passion. And so over the last several decades, there's been a lot of information that people didn't want to believe. And I understand it, right? Because people are frustrated by the news today, and I don't want to diminish their feelings because they're legitimate. Like, you might not have seen the writing on the wall, and that's not saying that you're anything less for not noticing it. It's honestly, hopefully, putting the blame on Microsoft for not communicating that effectively and clearly. Now, again, lots of words and wiggle room between the line. Lots of strategies can always change, and it appears we're on the precipice of that. And so it is the goal of this video to talk to you guys today about basically 5 key things. I want to talk about Play Anywhere. I want to talk about cloud console, not as the main be all end all, but I do think, and will continue to think unless Xbox communicates differently, that their future for the Xbox is a cloud offering. And we're going to talk about Game Pass in this case, which brings up to the third point: day one Game Pass offerings. If those actually do go away, this in and of itself would be, I think, the most frustrating thing, as they have communicated that Game Pass is their platform, that Xbox is just a product they offer, but Game Pass is their platform. And if they go away from day one releases in that platform, there's no reason to subscribe. They're going to have to make that pitch, but are people going to believe them? I would, adventure to say probably not. And earning that trust back would take decades in this regards. I'm going to talk about the economics regarding cheap versus expensive capital. There's a lot of things going on outside of gaming that directly has impacted these studios, these firms, and the overall tech industry as well. I think there's something there. If you don't understand what I'm talking about for cheap capital and expensive capital, stick around for that. I think there's a lot of good information there. And then finally, saying goodbye to the console wars. This all kicked off this weekend. It was interesting to see some of y'all's responses, especially like, source, trust me, bro. And it's like, this isn't a trust me, bro source in this case. This is happening. And more leaks, more and more news. The internet moves very quickly, and by the time this video is posted, who knows what other revelations have been shared. And so if you guys like this kind of content, you like this coverage, maybe consider subscribing to the channel and leave a comment. I'd love to have your thoughts in my feed sometime while I'm reading this before I go to bed tonight. So, hey, think about it. Anyhow, let's go and dive in. Kind of the first concept. I'm going to start with Phil's tweet here. It says, "We're listening and we hear you." That feels awful because that feels so corporate. I don't know no other way to put it. That feels corporate. "We've been planning a business update event for you next week." And it's interesting they use the word business. We're going to look forward to sharing more details with you guys about the vision and the future of Xbox. So stay tuned. So, Play Anywhere for me was the canary in the coal mine. When they announced that games were going to be on PC and Xbox day and date, the concept of the exclusive became very muddled and muddied. And we actually all accepted it originally. And if you're a gamer back in the 360 and before era like myself, that was a real weird moment when all of a sudden an exclusive didn't mean something that was only on one device. A lot of things have driven that kind of response, namely cell phones, namely a lot of better internet rolling out. But we're still not there on the internet. Don't misunderstand that. While I enjoy cloud gaming and I understand its benefits and why the value proposition is there, I know it's not for everybody, and I'm not saying that hardware consoles are going away. So hopefully that's clear. But Play Anywhere was that canary in the coal mine, which just made things possible. All of a sudden, Xbox was doing something that was very pro-gamer, that was anti-Xbox in their console, because there was no need to buy the console. Now, again, their messaging not necessarily clear, and when it comes to Bethesda, for example, a case-by-case basis, for example, we did this to lockdown exclusives. I know a lot of people are frustrated at that, rightfully so, but again, this maybe is the hopium. I'm not trying to be an apologist here, but this is just how I heard it then and continue to understand it today, is that I think the concept of the exclusive is changing. And essentially an exclusive in this case would be something like Game Pass. It would be something like their cloud offering, would be something like day and date as a part of that, a timed exclusive that would then eventually roll out to the other platforms. I don't know if that is in their future. Some of the things and information that's leaked today, some of it's false, some of it's true. Xbox is going third party-ish is perhaps the best title for this video. And so who knows what's going to happen with that, but cloud is an important thing. Now, I would speculate that if they do and want to continue on what they have communicated and how I've interpreted it, we're going to see them probably launch the Xbox X Cloud much sooner than expected, and hopefully much better and more powerful than we expect. I think we've seen more and more people use that service that is a part of Game Pass, and I think the value proposition is there for a lot of gamers. Not like the hardcore who play on the PC and want the highest fidelity. That would be a GeForce Now offering, but for Xbox itself, I do wonder if this does mean them pushing further into the launch of that platform. And the question remains, do they still have plans for their hybrid approach, in which that was something that was leaked as a part of the summertime court document information that we all got privy to. Now, for me, regardless of it, like, cloud is a big part of the future of my gaming. I've been cloud gaming for over the last 8 years, and it's only gotten better. It's only gotten way more enjoyable. And for a lot of people who do have that ability, there's a lot that they are getting out of that platform, because it takes some of the best things about PC gaming and it makes it more mass marketable to everybody out there right now, from a cost perspective, but also from a maintenance and updating perspective. I don't know if you are like me, I got 6 kids. Whenever a game requires me to download and update it, that's lost time. That's time that I'm not going to be spending gaming, and I factor all of that in. That's why one of the reasons I like booting up games on GeForce Now, because they're instant. There's no updates. It's literally handled for me. I don't have to worry about patches and drivers and any of that. But then yet I get a ultra wide 120 frames per second, lagless, lossless experience. That is what is coming down the pipeline for a lot of people, but there's still going to be a roadmap and a rollout for that adoption. It's not going to happen overnight. And maybe this is just Xbox saying, you know what? We're not selling Xboxes, which is the real story here. They're not selling Xboxes because of the moves they're making. And so this is going to be a monumental shift in the state of the game for the industry. Now, if they remove the day and date Game Pass, I don't like, Game Pass isn't their platform anymore. The fact is they have that right now is the reason I'm subscribed. If they remove that, I'm not going to be subscribed at all. And that is just going to be what it is. Now, on that note, like, I'm going to jump in. That's coming from Peter. This is rumored right now, so don't ultimately know if that's going to be true. So just kind of keep that in mind and lock to that. I want to talk about a couple of these tweets a little bit, and then I want to talk a little more about the economics of capital and why we're seeing so much turmoil within technology. Ryan McCaffrey says, I respect the heck out of Phil, but constructive criticism time. Their messaging is almost always reactive rather than proactive. Their brand is in a constant defensive state. It's been this way since 2013, and it makes them look weak. Honestly, Sony and Nintendo aren't like this. I think those are really powerful words. Paris Lily tweets out, when Xbox officially comments on what is going on, I'd like to see the following criteria for what games will be multi-platform. I'm going to say most likely all of them, most likely at a timed rollout, unless they're multiplayer, because multiplayer games need players, and honestly, PlayStation's got the players. That the math checks out on that. Commitment to delivering Xbox hardware, digital library preservation. That last point is the most important point. Xbox, in my opinion, has been the most, gamer friendly and gamer focused. One of the reasons why I didn't have any issues purchasing their systems. I'm fortunate. I have every, gaming system that is available. My wife loves me and she supports me in my ridiculousness passion here. So like know that I'm in a privileged position in this case, but digital library preservation is important. That's one of the things I'm evaluating and very nervous about to see what Nintendo Switch, or what I'm hoping they call Super Nintendo Switch, does later this fall. So I'm very excited about that. I cannot wait to hang out with you guys, play some new 3D Mario, because I love Mario. It is what it is. Now, Rhino says, kind of just the update of the future from Xbox from Jez Gordon, who is tweeting out, Xbox has no plans to quit hardware. It doesn't make sense for them to quit the hardware. I think hardware is going to take a different approach. It's going to look much different, much like what we see with the Xbox Series X. I think hardware is going to be something where they're going to integrate with as much like any TVs as possible, all the devices as possible, and then hardware becomes an offering that if you want to, you can opt into. But why would you buy it? That in and of itself is a question whether we see PlayStation follow suit, which they don't really need to. I mean, they're making money on the sale of their PS5. They're making money on the sale of their games. This might actually save them a lot of money because they won't have to start to pay to keep games off of the Xbox. But I do wonder if an antitrust suit will be in the future, where if Xbox has that offering, they can kind of do what Apple and they did back in the 90s, where Apple was failing, but Microsoft needed to pump them up so that they didn't get pulled into antitrust when it came to the state of computer and operating systems. Now, no idea, that could be a Hail Mary play. All of this feels like a Hail Mary play at the end of the day, so we're just going to leave it at that. Now, Xbox games are probably going to be multi-platform. Yes, I think that's going to be really great. I look forward to playing Gears with you, PlayStation crew. I look forward to playing Gears with you, people who are still remaining on Xbox. I know that people will still remain on Xbox. There will be a big cut to people who want to support that platform, because what we'll be seeing, of course, over the next couple of months is the 7 stages of grief, processing through what has changed, and I do believe ultimately coming out in a positive way. Well, at least that's the hope. That's what I'm going to advocate for, but there's no guarantees, so we'll keep you up to date on all of that. Now, Brave New World for gaming is coming, and I absolutely agree. Now, Colt Eastwood tweets out, Xbox needed to put their games up PS5 because the PlayStation first party was AWOL this gen, outside of remasters and PS4 sequels. Oh man, the memeing and the warring will continue, because I want to highlight Kylo before we get into the economics of all this, saying, I just feel bad for all the PS fanboy channels on YouTube now. Their views are going to be all in the toilet, seeing as they no longer have a holy war to rage on game consoles. Not much to talk about when every Xbox Studio game is on every platform. Just complain about no PS Studio games. And that's probably true. I think what we'll see with what the console war is, and that's why I titled my last video, the end of the console wars is here. Because that in and of itself is fading into existence, but people will still find things to try and one-up each other. There will still be teams. But I do see a future in which that gamers rally around the games and the IPs more than the actual boxes that they run on, because there will be more options as we see PlayStation step more into cloud as well, and also to PC as well. So there'll be more options. Hopefully people play more games. Hopefully these companies make money and they keep making us games. Like, there is a real scenario here which we win. There's also a real scenario here in which that some new competitor decides to step into the field, and that competitor would have to be funneled with an insane amount of money, and the only person I could think of would be Amazon, and we'll see what happens there. And if you guys don't know, I play a lot of different Amazon games. They're doing some major things, and they are not to be, I see a lot of people diminish them, I think, to their, to what will end up being another moment where, unfortunately, I'm like, guys, like, I've been telling you this is happening. So you guys, I'm not trying to be an asshole when it comes to all this, but it is what it is in this case. Let's talk about economics. Economics, cheap capital versus expensive capital. What we had before the big crash, I guess, of the we had the big spike and then the big drop, and now as we're seeing interest rates rise, the cost for capital increases. We had so many zombie companies. We had a lot of these social media aspects, a lot of these things that were built on cheap money, because people would go and borrow massive amounts of money at a low interest rate and pump it in to these companies, pump it into Silicon Valley, and then their valuation would go up and they'd make lots of money until that stopped. And as we saw interest rates rise, people are having to take different chances when it comes to capital. So we are leaving an era where capital was cheap, and we're going to go back to an era where maybe it's more normalized, probably where it should have been this whole time. But that means that companies can no longer be zombie companies. They do need to turn a profit. They do need to have a product, and we're seeing that stress tested within the entire state of technology right now. And so the big guys will probably become the bigger guys, and hopefully we can start to see more mom and pop stuff step in and compete. But I don't have the biggest amount of hope for that, because both video games and social media are preferred monopolies, and that's the best way I can describe where people want to be where all the people are. You know, everybody wants to be, you know, the reason why Twitter doesn't have a competitor, and you might say Facebook's the competitor, is like they're completely different things. People who say they're leaving Twitter eventually do come back to that platform because it's where the people are. It's where the things are happening, right? So that's what I mean by more preferred monopoly. Sure, there's competition, but it's not necessarily where all the things are happening. And so no matter what, you want to gravitate towards that. You don't want to have to go out and do all of this work. Most likely you're busy and you're using these things as a form of entertainment. And if you're entertained at all, or educated, or learn something, hit that like button. I would love it. Anyhow, let's go ahead and talk about saying goodbye to the console wars as a final thought here. I think this is going to be a good thing in the long run. I think in the short run, there's going to be a lot of drive and value in content and in reaction and discussion and so much more. So a part of me is just kind of like getting the popcorn and just like, I can't stop it. I can't change it. I'm just along for the ride at this point, being hopefully a Sherpa to you guys to break down what this information means and what are its possibilities. Now, there's a lot of moving parts, and next week Phil Spencer could come out and blow us all away with some interesting news. He could just come out and say, we tried our best, guys. Thank you so much. At the end of the day, I do think that they're going to stick around. They're going to have an offering, but Xbox is going to be everywhere. Play Anywhere is going to have its promise in its name fulfilled after all of this time. And that's why I was never really worried about the ABK acquisition. I know a lot of people didn't think, like they were really frustrated with me. I was like, guys, Starfield's coming to PlayStation. This was called. I called this a long time ago, and I'm going to continue to tell you guys what's happening, and I hope that we can have some real good conversations. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings or diminish you by any means, but I do appreciate you guys if you stuck all the way to the end of this video. It's a long one. Thank you so much. If you made it all the way to the end, let's get some hooty hoots in the chat, in the comments below. I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for your time today. If you're interested in checking out the podcast we just did with J-Dub, the link is in the description. The top link will get you to all the audio forms of the podcast and all the other content that I make here on the internet. I thank you so much for your time today. I really hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to talk to you guys more as more things become clearer over the course of this story. Thank you so much for joining me. Love you faces. Hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, take care.